for me, that's more important than probably most other things that people argue about with natural wine, whether it's filtered or whether it's, got sulfur or not. Like that's, for me, until we deal with the vineyard side of things, I think it's totally irrelevant, those sort of conversations, and that's a personal preference. But that's something that
Hello and welcome to another episode of Real Wine People. Before we kick off with today's guest, I'd just like to apologise for the time gap between this episode and the last one. Been a little bit busy in the winery and vineyard at the moment. Spring's in full bloom, and you might notice, due to this, I've got some snottiness as the mid-row crops in the vineyard are flowering and firing up my hay fever. Originally with this podcast, I was hoping to get out one episode per week. This has proven a little more difficult than first anticipated. However, I will try and get them out a little more consistently from now on. Today's guest is Gareth Belton. I caught up with Gareth and Rainbo at their winery in the Adelaide Hills recently, where we spoke about a wide range of subjects, including seaweed, Wendy the ostrich, organic farming, and most importantly, the terroir of the local pubs. Gareth and Rainbo have just released their much sought-after spring wines from Gentlefolk, which can be found at their website gentlefolk.com.au. You can find this and links to all things Gentlefolk and some of the things we spoke about at our website realwinepeople.com. If you are listening to this via the Apple Podcasts app, please leave us a rating and review. Amazingly, we are climbing the charts in the food category in Australian podcasts, and recently, apparently, hit number one, probably for about 1 or 2 seconds at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday, I'm sure. I don't know how these things work, but a big thanks to everyone. Please enjoy this conversation with Gareth Belton.
I just fancy earphones, man.
I know. I'll just push record anyway. All good? All right. Well, thanks for having me here at Gentlefolk and Basket Range. I'm with Gareth and Rainbo in the little winery, drinking delicious Kerner Riesling. You guys haven't always been in Adelaide Hills, so originally from the area?
No, I grew up in South Africa.
Oh, right. That's a bit of a way.
Rainbow's from Far East Gippsland, which is pretty much just as far away once you drive there.
Sure. And you meet halfway in Mauritius? Or?
Oh, that would have been nice. No, in Warrnambool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Victoria? Yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
2007 at a seaweed conference.
Really? Tell me more. Did he?
And then she asked me on a date, but then didn't work out.
What happened there?
I can tell the story. You can have the mic if you want. Well, Rainbow apparently was asking me out on a date, but I just thought she was asking me to go hang out, and I had a girlfriend at the time, so that didn't really work out very well, did it? But now it did now. That's what happened.
Rainbow's shaking your head. You can grab a mic if you want. It's just there. You can refute this. So then, met at a seaweed conference. Do you have any choice seaweed pickup lines or anything that we need to know about?
No. No, I think we're the only two normal people there. So
right.
We sort of and then we sort of, I don't know, parted ways. And then I had to go over to do some diving over in Perth, around Rottnest Island in 2010, and sort of needed a dive buddy.
Right.
New Rainbow was over there doing a PhD, living in Fremantle. So we hung out for a few days, and then started hanging out a bit more.
Cool. So you're both studying. What would that be? What's the seaweed study thing called?
PhD in phycology.
Phycology. Okay, and that's the study of
seaweed. Or algae.
Right. Okay. So then you were telling me a story. So you hooked up again, and the dive buddy was because you were doing your PhD?
Yep.
And you had to dive the coast all through Western Australia?
Yeah, well, we had some money to collect a few things.
Right.
Sort of around the coastline, and that was one of the trips. And we were actually on our way back from Ningaloo on another trip.
Right.
And we stopped in Perth for a couple of days just to dive Rottnest Island, which was good. Cool. And because of the way the OH&S works, you need like 1,000 dive buddies and shark shields, and so we don't all get mauled and
never want that.
No, and sucked out to sea because it's a bit hectic over there in WA.
Can be. So you dive from Adelaide all the way up to Ningaloo?
That year we just did Ningaloo for about 2 weeks, and diving that sort of coastline.
Yeah.
not that much further away from the station. And then just around Rottnest Island, and then actually later in 2010, we did a trip from, we pretty much started Margaret River and made our way all the way to Israelite Bay, just past Esperance.
Oh, cool.
Diving and hanging out.
And then how'd you go from seaweed to wine?
Well, I moved to Adelaide, and I wasn't in the wine before then. I was, and then you move to Adelaide, and it's like
you have to be
playground.
Yeah.
Because you sort of, there's a couple hundred wineries within an hour's drive of the city. And yeah, moved here to do your PhD, and you got lots of free time. And no one's really telling you what to do. So, went to Celladors, started hanging out at East End Cellars, doing tastings. They do tastings every Friday night. And then met James Erskine and Anton Van Klopper and Tom Shopbrook.
Great.
And Alex Shulkin when they were doing their things. And yeah, started hanging out with them up here, helping James out on the winery a bit, and Alex when he was just starting up.
And that was 2010?
2012.
Cool.
And then we, sort of fell out of love with university life and university things. And
so how does that...
more time here, and then, I don't know, took a plunge.
And bought a place and started making wine?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Well, we started making wine before we bought up here.
Yep.
And, used to drive up a fair bit. And luckily, James Erskine let me use his shed and equipment.
Oh, cool.
In the beginning. And, and then just bought some grapes around here from the Brodericks.
Yep.
And because at that stage, there wasn't much fruit in, demand for fruit.
And that's basket range?
Yeah, basket range wines.
Wines, yep.
Whereas, now, they could sell every berry that's ever come with their property, which is great. But so yeah, made a couple of barrels in 2013. Some Cab Sav, some Merlot, and some what else are we making? Cabernet Franc.
Oh, cool.
Barrel of each. And then I don't know, sort of, what it's like with wine, a bit addictive.
Yeah.
One thing leads to the next. Before you know it, you've spent every cent you ever owned on buying stuff and
hiding things in the corner from Rainbow. Maybe where's that?
Oh, the big barrel. It's over there now. Oh. No, it's allowed. It's been forgiven, so it's allowed out the front. May as well use it as a showpiece.
Yeah, nice. It looks good.
Cost the same price as the rest of the winery.
So, when was the first vintage in here in the shed?
2014.
Oh, cool.
So we bought this and we moved in January 2014, and this was full of paint and cars and chemicals and crap. And roped a few friends in for the day, and we came up here and we scrubbed it down, got everything moved out. And in 2014, we only did about, what was it? Maybe 12 tonne.
Right.
12 tonne.
Yep.
So we ramped it up a fair bit compared to the year before, which was sort of a tonne and a half. And at that stage, I just had like a little hand crank press and didn't have a destemmer.
Yep.
There was actually no power in the shed. So we ran an extension lead from the top shed down here, and we were hanging some lamps off the ceiling.
Really?
And, because we had to work at night because I was still working in university at that stage.
Sure.
Trying to press things and clean things down here, but it worked.
Yep.
I know, probably made better wines then than I do now with all this fancy stuff. But
I remember when I started, we had the 4 hectares and a shed, so we opened an illegal winery down there. We had 3-phase power to the shed, but I didn't have anything to plug into it. But we didn't have any running water, so to sort of clean stuff, I'd have to run to the water tank and with a bucket get it and then run back and scrub it. No forklift, so we'd sort of pick and then plunge in these tubs. And when it came to pressing, I'd have to drag the crank handle press to where that bin was and then, bucket it in. And then once it was liquid, because I had a pump and I had a couple of barrels, but once it was liquid, I could move it to the barrels, and then it was like, oh, that's fine. And then, you'd scrape this big, heavy basket press along the concrete to the next bin, do that again. But yeah, running water the second year, that was pretty amazing.
No, mate, makes all the difference. Power, electricity.
I know.
And then we didn't have a forklift up until 2016.
Right.
Yeah, so we had like one of those hand crank lifters.
Yep.
And that was
a hand crank lifter.
Yeah, like it's a pain in the ass.
Right.
It kills you.
Yeah.
And especially if just trying to lift 2 barrels or something like that. And then we hired this
like a pallet jack.
Yeah, but like a pallet jack but lifter.
Right.
And then we had but obviously it's got the 2 legs that sort of come out the front, and then the 2 tines in the middle, and it goes up. So, and that kind of worked. But the following year, I thought we'd be clever, and we hired a electronic one of those.
Yep.
And sure enough, by about half an inch, they don't work with barrel racks. So you couldn't actually get around the barrel rack to put barrels on top of each other. So it was a complete fail of a unit, and it broke down about 100 times.
Yeah.
And then, it was a bit of a pain in the ass, and then, didn't pay my bills because I was like, this thing doesn't work. And then they sent debt collectors and
oh, really?
Else. So anyway, don't buy Crown forklifts.
Oh, nice.
Bad people.
So okay, you've got so did anything transfer from phytology?
Phycology.
Phytology be what? The science of fighting? Maybe.
Be.
Yeah, MMA or something. But anything transfer from that?
Maybe, because obviously, undergraduate was in botany and, understanding, I guess, general microbiology as well that we would have to go through sort of helps, understanding in terms of, ferments, bad bugs, good bugs.
Yep.
Understanding, general basic biology, how things work, you can sort of help with, I think, things to a bit, but
work out how a ferment's going to be happening.
Yeah. But you can read all this stuff in a book. And let's be honest, winemaking is 99% logistics.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
As long as you don't fuck that stuff up, you can get anything done. But yeah, that's the hardest bit I find is running. The biggest change was moving over and running a business. That was like, it was almost a joke.
Yeah.
Like when my dad's a chartered accountant, and he we were like, I was like just walls of boxes of paperwork, and everything was on spreadsheets, and he came over here and spent a whole week pretty much cooped up in the office going through every bit of paperwork ever for the business over 3 years.
Oh wow. And
compiling it all and dealing with it all, and at that stage I was like, yeah, right, we've actually definitely we need to sort this out. And then got a nice fancy accountant, and
I met
was
him.
Just like, you've met him, yep. And he sort of gave me a bit of a giggle when we first started hanging out, when he was like, all right, this should be interesting, shouldn't it? And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry ahead of time. But, we sorted it out, and since then it seems like everything's been a bit, once you get rid of that stuff, you have more time to think about winemaking and growing grapes and, actually relaxing and looking after, yourself and your family as well.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, I think, is the balance, because you're farming, and then you're manufacturing, and then you're sort of marketing, and
doing paperwork, and then
understand that.
And then there's always alcohol around as well, and that sort of takes
which is a motivator. It's makes you get things done.
Some mornings I'm definitely not motivated, that's for sure.
So you've now running 4 different vineyards around the hills yourself, and getting them all BD and organic. Yeah,
so we've got 4 sites that we've been looking after now for a while, and we'll probably have another one coming on this winter as well.
Great.
Which is good. And
get to buy tractors.
Yeah, tractors would be good. And so we're doing that, and it's that's been a big learning curve, from day one.
Yep.
We sort of took over in 2000 and sort of around June 2014. Taris sort of gave me a call, and we're a bit sort of, what can we do? Because at that stage, there was no organic grapes around here at all anyway to buy. It was just one of those things. It just wasn't happening at all here, and we sort of wanted to work with organic fruit, but it was just almost impossible to get, and we wanted to work with vineyards up around here where we live, and because Adelaide Hills is such a massively large region, from north to south. You go to sort of the bottom of Clarion Vale near Wollonga, where you get Kaipo, all the way up to, Gumaraka and Kersbrook and stuff, where, you're pretty much mostly in the Barossa by that stage in Williamstown. And it's, we were want something from around here. So we thought, well, we couldn't do it. And I was getting a bit down. I'm like, what's the point? Maybe we should just actually, I should just deal with this university and work it out and keep going in this career. And then, Taris gave me a buzz, and, he was like, mate, there's this vineyard, I just met these people, and it's in Forest Range, it's amazing, it's big, and they want to tear it all out, and, go and knock on their door. And sure enough, went over there and had a chat with them, and that was, Scary Gully Vineyard in Forest Range, and the owners were just pretty desperate. They'd try to make it work, and it wasn't working, and they'd leased it to people, and they'd been screwed over, and there was a few things happening, and they were just keen to get rid of it. And the guy pretty much said to me, yep, you can have it, all good. I just do not want to step foot in this vineyard ever. I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
You just look after it. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And then I was like, now what?
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea what to do.
Right.
At all.
So before that, you hadn't worked in vineyards, pruned, or no? Wow.
Zero. And I was like, oh shit. I'd done some pruning, but not that doesn't count if you go out pruning for a few days. It was, like actually running it from scratch, going, well, how the hell do we do this? Even things like, how do I get pickers, or how do we spray, or like what are we going to do, and things like this. And luckily, a few things fell into place at around that time, like Mark Wisson, who's up here in the hills, got a beautiful vineyard called Wisson Lake and Winery. I just gave him a buzz, and he said, yeah, I know the vineyard, because he was part of the planning of it, back in the day in 84. And so he came on to help with all the tractor work from the beginning, and then about that time as well, met another guy called Dylan Grigg, who for years was working with Mac down in the Yarra.
Yep.
And Dill, he'd moved back to Adelaide from the Yarra because they had two young boys, and they wanted to be close to their family because they're from Adelaide and the Barossa.
Sure.
And moved back here, to get support from the family, which is, hugely important, as having kids.
Yep.
And like he came to tasting one night that I was doing, and, out of the blue started talking, and, I was talking, trying to make it look like I knew what I was talking about,
Nice.
with vineyards and stuff.
Yep.
And this dude could see right through me straight away. And eventually he probably felt bad for me and was like, yeah, well, by the way, I do this and this. And I was like, red in the face. God, I'm an idiot. And I've been called out. And he said, I'd love to hang out. And, if you've got some stuff to do or you want some advice, just let me know. Like, he just started a PhD in viticulture then.
Great.
And, we started hanging out, and he came on with us for a bit and helped me out with everything, in terms of, organics and thinking about things in a broader scale in the vineyard. And, he sort of, I remember back in the day, he'd write me like a long list of things and what we wanted to do. And I'd look at it and I'd be like, come on, man, can you prioritize these? Like, we haven't got a certain amount of money and a certain amount of time, and I don't know how we're going to do all that sort of stuff. And he, buddy, do you want to go outside and ride your bike for a bit? Okay, can you not kick the table? Is that okay? Please? So anyway, we'll see how that goes. So we sort of had these long lists of things, and it's only really now, this winter, where I feel like we've actually been able to tick off most of those things in the list.
Oh, great.
And like, it's taken that many years to, get, to a point where we're organised and we sort of on control of certain parts of the business.
Sure.
To then be able to, start biodynamics properly and start cover cropping properly, and look at changing the way the vineyards are pruned on a bigger scale, not just hoping that we'll finish the pruning before bud burst happens, whereas now you can actually be like, cool, we've got those 2 months and that's what we want to do and do it. So without Dill and Mark, it would have been painful, and then it gets addictive because you have a bit of make Pinot out of one vineyard and you're like, I don't know, I'm not really that into that Pinot, like, to an extent, but it makes it funny in that style and good style, but I want to make something else. And, oh, look, there's another vineyard. That's for lease. Just take that one on and then take that one on. And, now it's sort of got to a point where, luckily in this region, we've got to a point now where people are really into organics, and a lot of the bigger companies who have been living the dream up here in terms of great pricing and lease pricing, things like that, with these smaller, because Adelaide Hills, there's not huge expansive vineyards up in this part of the hills.
Sure.
Because it's so hilly and steep, and a lot of the vineyards are sort of around a hectare or so that are owned by someone who's bought a house and they put in a vineyard.
Yep.
And then they leased it out to one of the bigger companies, or they leased it out to a farm share system with a viticulturalist who then sold the grapes off to whoever. And these guys were getting hardly any money, and there's lots more vineyards coming up now in some great spots.
That's great.
And it's good, and people are really interested in organics, which is good. Like, it's sort of got to the point now where people are approaching, wanting us to take over vineyards to farm it organically, because they live there and they want to live in a spot that's like that. And it's almost, but I mean, I guess that's more of a global thing. I guess in general, people are sort of waking up now to the fact that maybe we should be caring a bit more and understanding a bit better. And it's sort of, I think we'll get, hopefully there's that, I guess, there's that idea that people want to get better. They want to do organics. They want to eat, healthier food, or
that's right.
Eat, fish that are from a decent place, or caught, sustainably, or whatever you want to call it. But whether that can overcome the greed of, capitalist lifestyle, being able to buy a new car every 3 years and go on your holidays overseas, whether that trumps the what is going to trump what is going to be, that's the real question, I think. But
the same. I think it's certainly changing. A lot of it. whether it's coming from the market or, you know, people wanting to care for the soil. We've had the same thing in Margaret River. I couldn't get the fruit that I wanted to get, so that's why we sort of doubled down and bought the vineyard that we did and converted it ourselves. But this was the first year that I can remember, and I think it's 20 years of vintages down there, where there was certified organic fruit for sale that you could buy. And, you know, perhaps there was some, you know, here and there a couple of years ago, but this year, and then I got offered more again.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, there's only so much we can take, of course, but it just shows how it is switching. Like there was zero when we were trying to start.
I mean, that's the same story here, you know, from between 2015 to now, like it's got massive, you know, and that's been driven by a lot of guys around here as well who've, you know, taken on leases or wanting to pay more for fruit. You know, like in the beginning for us to get, you know, one of our neighbours to go organic, it was, you know, we tried, you know, like talking about it and trying to, you know, say, well, this is what we, you know, would like and things like that. And it just came down to money. Like, and, you know, we're lucky in a position where we're small enough and, you know, we're sort of in a, I guess, like a boutique-y style of the market where, you know, we get decent prices for our wines and, you know, they're in small volume so we can, you know, always sell them out, you know, because it's not like we're trying to sell 10,000 cases of something. Yeah. And, you know, with that price point, you know, an extra, as you know, like an extra, you know, $1 on a bottle means an extra $850 for the grower, you know, for every ton. So it's, you know, like the way we saw it is like, well, instead of selling wines for, you know, $16 wholesale, let's sell them for 20
and look after the grower.
Give the grower $3,500 a ton, you know, and then it's in their own interest to go organic. And that's what people call up now. Like I was saying last night, it's like someone calls me up. They don't really give a fuck about organics or anything. They just know they can get more money if they farm it organically. And that's what I do. And I'm willing to cop that. If that's all it's going to take. And I think we can convince people, and I think people will be happy to pay, you know, an extra $1, you know, not because they're going to see me, you know, on Instagram on my yacht in Bali, you know.
No, like you just send them to me privately.
Yeah, exactly. That's in our text message chain. I save up all my old pictures of me in the vineyard digging holes for when I'm in Bali, and I post them then.
That's to put the old shorts on.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, be able to pay, for us to get, you know, more people employed in our business to, you know, to help us, you know, I guess not grow, but more to, you know, to be able to spend more time in the vineyards and farming and looking after the cellar a bit more. You know, but not that we don't look after at the moment. We can't do everything. You know, we're producing, you know, 50,000 bottles a year, and you know, we're doing everything. Obviously, we're not. The leases that we have, that only accounts, you know, between 40 and 60% of what we produce. The rest is bought fruit that I buy from, you know, less so from my neighbours now because their kids are making it and they, you know, they need every grape they can get. But there's a lot of other, you know, growers up around here that are organic, and I can buy fruit from them. So, you know, that sort of helped us grow to an extent because you can't do everything. But well,
no, especially when you're growing and doing it yourself, it's just a game of compromises. It's like, oh, well, I can't quite mow that one or, you know, mow that vineyard today, so let's skip the mowing and it's going to look ugly and we'll do it later. Let's go to the pub. The footy's on. And then as you grow and get better and, you know, you can afford to, you sort of get the vineyard at least in a way that you understand the seasons and what needs to be done when, and then you can put more concentration here or there. People help you. No, it's good.
No, like it, you know, and it's always been the dream, and it, you know, it's sort of getting, you know, to that point around, you know, like this. It feels like now, you know, sort of feel a bit more comfortable with things. Like not so much, you know, like obviously you've still got to work and keep going, but it sort of feels like now that we can relax a bit, or you know, a bit about the stressful side of some things, you know, like where we're sourcing our grapes from, or, you know, sales and things like that. It's now like we know how we can do these things. We just got to keep on doing it and push harder. And now we can, you know, I guess start refining, or like so much the vineyards and the winemaking, but almost sort of, you know, maturing to an extent of like having time now to think, you know, instead of doing everything at 98%, we can try and push to do everything at the 100% rate that we want.
Great.
Which is, you know, that's always the dream. But as you know, as you said,
you never get there.
Total compromise.
Yeah, well,
at the moment, and then you have a bugger of vintage like the one we just had when there's no fruit.
And why was that? Because all of your fruit comes only from the Adelaide Hills region.
Just from literally. So we have the vineyards that we farm. There's two in Norton Summit. There's one in Ashton.
Which one's near the pub we went to last night?
Well, that's actually all of them. Is 2 Norton Summit and Ashton. They sort of surround the pub.
Oh,
very
cool.
convenient.
Yeah, great.
And then if you're driving from those vineyards to my other vineyards, one in Piccadilly and one in Forest Range, you also drive past another pub if you need a beer at that time of day.
Cool.
But
is that how you choose your vineyards mainly?
100%.
Is it based on the terroir of the pubs that are closest? Yeah.
And where the police are likely to be. But I mean, these vineyards, for me to get to a vineyard, I think I want to be able to get there. For example, like, it's hot or, something's, in the middle of the season, I can cruise around and see all my vineyards and walk them all. And in one day, I can do everything pretty much. And it's because I'm only driving 10 minutes.
Great.
And then 10 minutes the next one and 5 minutes the next one. And it's sort of, I feel like that's important. And plus, we're here and we're on top of the hill here in Basque Range and we get the weather systems. You can just see it and stand, behind my house and just watch it all come in, which is, good and bad sometimes. And it's...
No sleep tonight.
Yeah, well, it's like that. The reason we had such a shocking vintage this last year. I mean, when I say shocking, just volume-wise, like, down 50%.
Yeah.
But the quality is better than I've seen it probably since around 2016 was the last high-quality year for us.
Right.
And this was a banging year especially for Pinot, which is, that's, more than 50% of what we do. So it's, kind of relaxing and good to feel that we've got a lot of really nice Pinot in the shed this year. And I mean, the day we went, we'd finished the pruning, we'd finished the wire lifts, the green thinning, and, we'd done a mow, sprays, and Rainbow and I, we were going to go on holiday to go see my parents who live in the US, and Rainbow's best friend lives in Canada. So it's a 2.5 week trip, and then also to meet our New York importers. And we thought, we planned it then because it's before Christmas, and it always rains during Christmas, New Year's time. And I'm like, I don't want to be away then because that's when we've lost things to disease over the years. So now I'm here or I'm somewhere else and really grumpy. But we're going to be here. We flew over there, and that day we were flying out. I was just looking at the radar and it was like Stormageddon right behind our plane as we were flying to Sydney to jump on the plane over to Canada, and just seeing this wall of chaos for a few days. And sure enough, like hail, heavy winds. And we had also then, because I thought I was so organised this year, I'll get the second wire lift up, and of course, the little fingers were just sticking above the second wire, and they all snapped off. Oh. And when I got back, the laterals were already pretty big.
You got to go and do some more green thinning.
Yeah, well, we didn't. We did a fair bit of hedging more than we've normally done, but yeah, I think over that period it was obvious that with the hail wasn't so much of a problem. It was more, I think, the wind and the rain and the cold weather, and it just kept. Right at that moment when the Chardonnay was flowering, I think we we copped it real hard with Chardonnay. It was, sadly one of those years where we got a bumper Sauvignon Blanc crop and a bugger all Chardonnay crop. So I hope everyone loves Sauvignon Blanc, because we've gone from being a sort of a 1 or 2 ton Sauvignon Blanc producer now to accounting for about 30% of our production.
Really?
Got 3 Savvy vineyards now, mate.
Time to move to New Zealand.
Yeah, well, no, the things up. Adelaide Hills was planted to sparkling, so Pinot, Chard, Pinot Meunier, and Sauvignon Blanc. So where we are up here, that would account for 95% of the plantings.
And what was that driven by? Shaw and Smith?
Shaw and Smith with the Sauvignon Blanc, and then Brian Crozer and those guys with the sparkling.
The sparkling, yeah.
So, and they put in a lot of the vineyards were started getting planted early 80s, which was, a lot of the vineyards were put in by Brian Crozer, for the Petaluma stuff. And then obviously Shaw and Smith then came along a little bit later than that, and Sauvignon Blanc started popping up everywhere.
Right.
And then with the success that Stephen George had at Ashton Hills with Pinot, a lot of Pinot vineyards were then planted for red wine as well after that, and that's what accounts for most of the stuff up here. So when I drive through, like between here and say Stirling, and I've got to drive through the valley, all the vineyards you see, there's some real sexy vineyards and nice sites, and Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
And for years I'm like, I'm not going to make fucking Sauvignon Blanc. And then eventually after I'm like, you know what? I actually had a few cracking Sauvignon Blancs, not from here so much. Sure. I do, there are some good Sauvignon Blancs made up here, but more richer, riper styles coming out of France, which I was just loving. And we took over one beautiful Chardonnay vineyard in Ashton, and there was a tiny block of Sauvignon Blanc, and I made a little bit, and I'm like, I actually really like that. It's kind of good. And I think maybe Sauvignon Blanc could work up here. And so now we've found a few beautiful blocks, one in Ashton and one in Norton Summit and one in Summertown. And we've we make Sauvignon Blanc in every way possible
No, I
to
was
see
just
what we
about
can
to
do.
ask,
Especially this year, it was like just kept on coming off, and I'm like, we'd be like, "Oh, really?" Like, okay, I'd go back out of the vineyard and be like, "What? We're only halfway through. Like, we've just picked like 1 million bins of Sauvignon Blanc." And like, we can only press so much, and there's only like so much. I was willing to like have a crack at. So this year we've done sort of direct press stuff, which is my preferred thing. A few days skin contact, then stuff that's a few weeks. Some carbonic, some destemmed.
Great.
And I don't know, it was ripe as fuck.
Really?
So it's like, which is what I wanted it. Like the owner was like calling me up, and he's just like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, are you going to pick these grapes or what? Like, you're not going to like just leave these, are you?" I'm like, no. Nope. As soon as it stops smelling like Sauvignon Blanc when I walk through the vineyard, then we're ready to pick. Want them to be beautiful golden. So they're between 13 and 14.5%.
Right.
So we picked over 3 weeks as well.
Sure. And the acids are still pretty tight, or?
Yeah. I mean, we can have a try if you want. It's interesting.
Great.
The carbonic stuff, is a bit wild, but
So what flavours are you getting out of that? I mean, we've done carbonic with Shannon before, and we do lots of treatments with treatments is a bad word, but with Savvy, like we even air dry some and skin ferment that. That's real wacky. Yeah, but so what does carbonic Savvy look like?
Really aromatic.
Right.
Yeah, super aromatic. And it's, I guess, it's sort of tropical to an extent, but it's more to it. It's not that sort of real, and because we're letting things go through full malic, the fermentation as well, like it's they sort of, it's hard to explain, They sort of, for me, they no longer so much represent Sauvignon Blanc to an extent. They start looking more, like some of the Italian skin contact wines that are,
sure,
like not so much, like aromatic, but more that texture in the mouth and that sort of, it's not like a darkness in the wine, but it's like this
weight and
and like sort of real earthy feels, and it's great, and it's interesting to see what it does. I mean, I don't know, like last year we can show you some of the barrels. They're all labelled as Vino Bianco Maturato because we had an Italian intern,
right?
And he was like, "Can we just do some skin contact wines?" Because he knows I'm like, I've known him for years, Ali and Danny, because they used to work at a wine bar in London. They used to sell our wines, and they came out here, and they were really pushing. They were like, all the wines they'd bring, they were super generous. Interns, they'd rock up for dinner and they'd go to the shops and buy wine, and normally interns, they're like,
trying to call the beer in the fridge by the time you get home.
Yeah, and they'd text you, "Can you get more beer or out of wine?" And these guys, most of the interns would be hinting at wanting to, "Oh, got any Auvernois?" Or you're just like, these guys would go to the shop and like buy things, and I'd be like, "Yeah, right, all right,
that's good.
Let's give that a go." And you could see they were definitely trying to push me. So by the end, I'm like, "All right, we've got so much Sauvignon Blanc. How about we just do some Italian wine?" And Ali, and Danny ran with it, and it was good. I mean, who knows?
So you're going to bring them all together as one blend?
No, we'll make like a pure Sauvignon Blanc for me,
sure,
and then we'll let Alessandro blend up the skinsy one.
So he's still around at the moment?
Yeah, well, he did the wise thing, went up to Queensland, and he's been sitting on the beach for a while. But he spent he spent last winter. When they first arrived, they did vintage with Xavier down in Victoria, and then they went to, they pruned all winter at Naringa and green pruned. So they did the hard yards, and now they're actually coming back to redo that.
Oh, great.
So, sadly not going to prune with me, but Aaron got him back. So, it's still nice to hang out with them. It's good they're around.
Yeah, that's great. Just to get it straight in my head, 2014 was the first release or the first vintage, or?
2013, like I made some wine and I did sell it. But, back then it was like printing labels on the printer and gluing them on and, like getting whatever free bottles I could find out of wherever. And
you're probably chipping the trees to make the paper.
Oh, mate, it was next level back then. And, but we got it done. But 14 was the first proper release, when I actually got labels printed by a label house and, actually bought my own bottles, which was good. And 14, we got lucky. It was like a perfect year for, I guess, the style of wines we wanted to make, and especially back then, like really light, like just drinkable, smashable wines. And that one was first sort of starting in Australia about then, where things were looking a bit lighter, a bit more lifted, a little bit more wild than what, had seen before. And we got lucky. I mean, the wines all turned out beautifully in that year. Like it was a real light year. Pinots all looked like rosé, and it was sort of at that moment of Australian, I guess, natural wine to an extent. Yeah. We just got right place, right time for us.
Great.
And it's, they sold out in 3 seconds, and it was...
and where did they sell? Were you doing all the sales? Or?
Yeah. So I went over... Luckily, back then, when I was starting out, like, guys like Anton and James and Tom, took me on trips with them.
Great.
And went around and met people and... sort of sold wines that way and had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Yep.
And it was fun. I mean, it was good. And we, the wines, we just went straight to restaurants and bars. And ever since then, we still, to this day, have really strong relationships with the first few people who bought my wines, and still see them every year.
Great. Who's that?
Well, guys like Esther and Nomad and Sydney and Love Tilly Divine. And so it was really, it was super. And Christian McCabe, who was at that time had Town Mouse, and now he's actually my distributor down in New South Wales and Victoria. He's got Punch and Bottles and Embler as well.
Yeah.
And it's been and the guys back then who were working the floor at Town Mouse, and now the guys on the road selling wines because they've grown up and got families and kids, and they can't do the all-nighters anymore, so they do the all-dayers selling our wine, and it's good. Like it's sort of this really nice tight community that I first met back then that we still. Have quite a close relationship with, which is good.
Did you, I know for me, did you ever have a moment where you might have been out to dinner with Rainbow or someone, not saying that you were out to dinner with someone behind Rainbow's back, of course, but, out somewhere and without knowing it, someone's ordered your wine and...
Yeah, on the table next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was always good. It was...
Did you stand up and go, oh, hey, did you know?
No, not that sort of guy. No. But sometimes I got people who would just force it in my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be like, can you go to their table and talk to them? I'm like, I'm here for dinner, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not freaking getting paid to do that.
No, it's a pretty weird feeling, and they pick up the bottle and then look at the label, and you're like, oh my God, this is how it's all.
Well, luckily, consumed. I think they've shielded me when people have sent them back, and they were like, can you, we can't drink that. But no, it's been, it is a strange feeling. Like you sort of, when I hate seeing people drink my wine, like I even struggle to open my wine when people, come to my house, like to an extent. I mean, I enjoy drinking my wine, well, some of them anyway, like, at home, like with Rainbow to have a look at things or as it is. But I, sort of what you've put into a bottle, it's a combination of, for example, like, this wine here, 2018, we started working on it in June, 2017 with the pruning, and then, you bottle it, in 2019. And by that stage, you've had to deal with multiple vintages and you're starting to think about the next vintage. And you sort of, I think everything gets a bit lost, and then you sort of look at it and you're like, I'm selling 2018s, but I've just made 2019s and I'm just starting on the vineyard work for 2020. And you've got 2 years of like looking back and being like, oh, fuck that up, didn't I?
Yeah.
And then you serve it to people and you look at you just like, all I see is, and that is one of the problems with wine and the wine community in general, is it's a very negative way of, whether it's judging wines or critiquing wines or, social media posts of things like this. Obviously positive stuff, but I think the way people, they critique wines, it's always in a negative way. Like they see the faults before they see the beauty. A lot of the time they're like, oh, that's faulty or that's that and that's that. They can't see past it. And like, I think, having that from day one and feeling like that's what it was like when you see someone ordering a bottle of wine, you're like, man, they're going to hate that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you sort of start apologizing, like it's really weird. You're like, oh, it wasn't the best year, that one and stuff. And it's a weird feeling, but maybe, maybe that's just me. I should just get over it, but it's...
No, I think because you put so much of your own, energy and emotion into doing it, it's a very personal thing, making the wine, and to have someone potentially not enjoy it. I mean, it's hard to not take it personally.
Yeah. No, because we're not like a, I mean, we're are a legal company, like, don't get me wrong, but like, it's not like we're something without a face or like, if the wine's shit, like they're going to blame me. They're not going to be like, oh, that bloody winery. They're going to be like, oh, that Gareth guy has no idea what he's, I'm just going to grab that bottle. He has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, and like, I'd be like, yeah, fine. Like, that's cool. If you don't like it, that's good. But that's your choice. But it's a fucking painful thing.
Well, when I was, so this skin fermented Sauv Blanc, You can take it.
No,
yeah. This skin fermented Sauv Blanc that we made back in 2010. We made one in 2009 and it was a bit rubbish. Hey? Well, the problem is we had it in a dark bottle. It was from our first release and we called it Blind Corner Margaret River Sauvignon Blanc. And I'd go up to the city to try and sell it. And people would read the label and expect it to be, from that time. So there was nothing sort of really crazy around Margaret River at that point to that extent. So they pour it in a glass and it'd be yellow and cloudy. And they're going, hang on, Margaret River Sauvignon Blanc, and we got sort of militant Sauvignon Blanc drinkers returning bottles to us. So that was pretty hard. I remember going to Perth to sell wine, and I'd go up sometimes overnight on a couch or somewhere. And I did a fortnight where I went up trying to sell these wines that we'd made and came back after a fortnight back to the house. Naomi, newborn baby, mortgage, both got no job because I've just jumped into it full time. There's no money coming in. And I hadn't sell one bottle in 2 weeks and just got back going, what's going on? And then returns were coming because the skin ferment wasn't understood. And I think I'm going around this the wrong way. So, over time, things changed. There was a few key moments, but...
In terms of what?
I guess you could say it's certain wine lists or somms who have, decided to take a punt on it, and then they happen to be the ones that are the influencers, and then people go, oh, that's interesting. We also took Sauvignon Blanc off the label and
yeah, I did that in my first year as well. I took Merlot off the label because I couldn't sell a freaking bottle.
Yeah, right.
I took Merlot off it.
Yeah.
And people
understood it. We had to take Margaret River off in the end. So then there was no preconceived ideas. It was just like Blind Corner Gaverno, which is Naomi and I taking turns going through Jancis Robinson's wine encyclopedia, trying to find a word that sort of described what we were trying to do.
And what does it mean?
Got to G, which is Gaverno. Well, if I remember correctly, it's an old Tuscan winemaking technique from the 14th century. They'd air dry grapes into raisins and keep them in case they had a stuck ferment, then they could pitch in a bunch of sugar to restart it.
Yeah, right.
We were sort of doing sort of that, but we got to G and we thought that was close enough and chucked it in.
Couldn't be bothered going through the rest of the alphabet.
It's a big book.
Yeah, I know, it's massive. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then, over time, we sort of, the first ones we did were quite aggressive in the way of, tannins like red wines, and then we started to sort of, work out how to move it more into texture and whatnot. So we were getting better as well. It was, it was pretty aggressive at the start.
Yeah, but now your wines are probably seen as too clean.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, too boring.
What's happened in 10 years
in the world?
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
It's been one hell of a journey to watch.
Yeah. What are we drinking?
All right. Yep. This is some of the Ashton Chardonnay from 18.
Oh, cool. So that's that. Is it just one vineyard?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I see. Yeah, cool. That's Rick's.
Rick's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And there on the front is Wendy the ostrich, who Rick is a special human being. He sort of planted a vineyard, and then it was back then. It was like, oh, put Chardonnay in. Everything's about Australian Chardonnay, and then suddenly everything was about Australian Sauvignon Blanc. So there's a Chardonnay block, there's a little Sauvignon Blanc block, and then there's a block that he started converting to Sauvignon Blanc, and he couldn't be bothered. So there's a block of half Sauvignon Blanc, half Chardonnay that was just left in a field.
Right.
And we took it over and rescued that block, and but he also, back in the day, there was apparently the next big thing was going to be ostrich meat because of how healthy it was.
Right.
So he got he bought ostriches and started raising ostriches in like an enclosure next to the vineyard, and over time he'd kill them and sell them.
Right.
But then the ostrich business didn't really work out, as now we have not seen any ostrich in the supermarket recently. And so he couldn't kill the last one. He felt too bad. So poor Wendy's been living there now for many years by herself.
Right.
In a pen in the middle of the vineyard.
Really?
And she's a bit, I've always thought it'd just be nice to buy another one and throw it in there to have a look, but I don't think she'd probably kill it. She's a bit nuts.
Oh, really?
So luckily the fence is nice and tall, and but that's the reason why she's on the label.
Well, this is beautiful.
I mean, it's with the Chardonnay for us. It's just that was just gently pressed, barrel fermented, and left in that barrel and racked and bottled. I mean, there's no, with a bit of sulfur at the first racking and then just before bottling as well.
Nice. So,
but always quite, with all of our whites, they're quite, yeah, I mean, they're always quite sort of textural and phenolic, you know, because we're not using heaps of, you know, sulfur and stuff at press, and we're not scared of oxygen.
Sure.
But it's a balancing act, you know, with these wines as well, like with Chardonnay especially, you know, like you sort of, you know, as soon as it's gone through, all the wines go through full malolactic fermentation, and, you know, if you miss a pick or you pick too late or something, you know, you can get quite big, ballsy, round wines, and, you know, if you're not using new oak on them as well, it's a touch and go thing, because, you know, I love white Burgundy a lot, and especially Chablis, and recently I've been, you know, I went over to Europe so we could try some more, because, you know, obviously it's impossible to afford white Burgundy in Australia unless you're, you know, a mining billionaire. So, and had a look, and, you know, when you see things, and, you know, looking, and now we've started the last 12 months, especially this harvest, experimenting with new barrels, not so much for new flavour, but just having more, I guess, crisper, newish barrels that are a lot cleaner and brighter, I think, for the wine. So we'll see. But, you know, I went and bought all these new puncheons.
Yep.
Had all these, you know, Chardonnay vineyards, and then, of course, we get a 30% of the crop we have. So I apologise to everyone ahead. We've got very oaky Chardonnay in 2019, because instead of it being 15% of the new oak blend, it's now closer to 40. So.
Oh no, that's great. I'm sure it's going to be great.
We'll see. I mean, luckily, you know, we've made so many fucking bad purchases over the years with barrels that we know. Luckily, we found the ones that sort of work for our styles now, and we sort of stick with them. And then we have 1 or 2 experimental purchases each year.
Right. And so you're buying some new oak every year, and then placing for me, like, it's, you know, you can do all this work in the vineyard, right? You can be out there and, like, grow everything to a T, you know, do the best job, spend all this time and money and blood, sweat and tears in the vineyard, and you can bring the wines into the winery and you can have the world's best press, but the wine spends an hour or 2 in the press, you know, like, where the money, like, in the cellar for me it needs to be spent where the wine spends its time. So for me, you know, having good barrels and, you know, clean hoses and a good pump is... Don't want no dirty hose, mate.
Yeah, well, that's why we just, you know, get a new set each year and, you know, give the other one to someone else, which is always clean. But it's like, it's more, your wine spends so much time there. If you are cheap and then go and buy a bunch of secondhand $50, you know, barriques from someone that are all 8, 9 years old, and you have no idea how they've been looked after. Like, it's just, for me, it just seems just stupid. Like, you sort of, what's the point of doing all that work if then you're going to put it in some crappy barrel and your wine's going to end up, you know, like, there might be good ones, but there might be bad ones, but you're taking a huge risk, and it's not worth it. Otherwise, you know, like, it's just use stainless.
Yeah.
But I like what oak does with whites, not so much with reds. So it's, we're giving it a crack. But you know what it's like, barrels, you sort of buy them and you're like, well, there goes, you know, that holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
There goes that new, you know, tractor part, or there
we go to the Motel 6, we're not flying a Bali.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, but they're expensive, but we want to move to larger format. So, you know, sort of have a minimum 500 litre as the base, because obviously they're still affordable. Barriques, I mean, puncheons to an extent, but the bigger barrels, which is what we'd like to have, are so expensive at the moment, but we'll start buying them, because I just feel with making wine, you know, like, I guess, you know, our goal is, you know, to grow everything, you know, beautifully in the vineyard, you know, and then bring things in here and do as little as possible in here. Like, you know, I'm not for sulfur, I'm not against sulfur, you know, I'm like for wines that are delicious and reflect, you know, the year and the person and the site, and it's more, you know, if we could do that without adding sulfur to the wines, that's the dream. You know, I think there'd be a lot of winemakers, you know, we'd say that. I think you'd find very few who wouldn't say that, you know, as a winemaker, be able to make, you know, grow beautiful fruit and make it without any additions whatsoever and make a beautiful wine is something that's, you know, for me, that's sort of the
holy
top
grail
of the pyramid, you know, where we want to get to. But unless things are nailed down to a T in the winery, you know, you're always going to take some level of risk, and that's fine. If you don't mind doing it, it's all good. But for me, I struggle with wines that have, you know, serious levels of mousiness or VA, and I can drink most things, and, you know, I've drunk lots of wild stuff. I've made some freaky wines over the years as well, and that's fine, but it's not what I want. Like, I love wines that are pure, really just something you can drink it and you can just go, it's just, it feels like, it's not got any winemaking influence to an extent. It's more just this absolute purity in a wine, which is, I think, why Chardonnay for me is something, because you just press it, you're just getting the juice, you're not getting affected by time-worn skins or things like that. But, that's, I guess...
Well, it's a big subject as well, but no, I tend to agree. I think if you're using sulphur and that's stopping things like, the VA and mousiness, those two things, VA and mousiness, for example, are taking away from your site expression, as much as... and whereas in that situation, sulphur is going to be preserving the site.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So, I mean, we... with some of the wines, I guess, it's not so much a recipe, but we know what we're going to do. Like, we know we're going to pick it, we're going to make it in this way. And, when it's finished to ferment, we'll rack it, give it a bit of sulphur, send it to the bottling line, and so be it. Whereas the other wines, I guess the ones, like especially the Chardonnays and the bigger Pinots, it's more, I like to just leave them and see where they go. Yeah. And I think having the best possible barrels, which they don't have to be new, but they could be new from a few years ago. And we've just been stung. Like, I've bought secondhand barrels over time, and a lot have been good, but there's been some shockers. And if you're making a wine like this Chardonnay here, this one from Ashton that we've got in front of us, it's 4-barrel blend.
Yeah.
Last year, like, the 1 barrel was just.
Oh, sorry, we just got a beep in our ear. That happened before. I think it means we've gone for an hour.
That's pretty good. This was 4 barrels, and I bought a new one, and I bought a fancy one. Someone was like, "No, I'm not going to mention the barrel company because I'm sure they're all nice people and they mean well, but you got to buy this. It's a special barrel made for, Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And it's, and it's out of Burgundy and stuff." And I'm like, sick. It's really expensive, and I'm like, yeah, right, I'll buy it. Have a look. And it was the worst fucking barrel. Like, it was disgusting. It was like the best combination of vanilla and coconut and like pineapple juice.
Really?
In a wine. And I was like, wow, cool. So
pina coladas.
Well, we had 5 barrels, and then the wine ended up being 4 because you can't put that in your wine. Like it was, you can't drink it. Like, it was undrinkable wine.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I'm sure someone would love it, and for me, I'm like, well, that's it. So much for that experiment. And that's the last barrique we ever buy, for sure. And the last barrel we buy from that company. But, like, it's frustrating, especially with a lot of these wines. There are only, like 3 puncheons of it or 2 puncheons of it. And it's frustrating when you buy something and we are at the end of the earth here. Like, I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy against us, but like, whenever I see export on like anything barrel-wise, I'm just like, oh, fuck.
Like EU export.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I'm like, oh, God. So, like I'm willing to work with, we've worked with now a few companies, like we're using Stockingers and Dummies, and I just love them.
Great.
They just, for me, they're adding to the wine, they're not taking away from it. And if I whiff coconut in a barrel, it's out, like it's gone. Like, I'd rather just use it for firewood.
Right.
But sometimes they get good after 2-3 years, but I think that, I don't know what you've seen, but once that coconut's in there, it's almost like I'm biased against that barrel, and I hate it anyway, so it doesn't matter what I put in it.
Yeah.
I'm just, may as well just fill it with Merlot, because, Merlot can't really do any wrong. You could put Merlot in anything and it just tastes like Merlot.
Just hugs it.
Beautiful thing about it. But yeah, frustrating.
We've, over the years with barrels, we've bought them from a few different people, but we've sort of got a bit of a secret supply now, which is nice. So we get 3-year-old Chardonnay oak pretty consistently. And
that's an old barrel Margarita though, so...
Yeah, it is. Old. Yeah, that's it. Well, we actually find them at the tip.
Yeah. Someone's burned pile.
Yeah, that's it. We wait. They're like, big bonfire the next day. We just drive in the night before and get what we need. No, it's not quite that bad. But I think barrels... I mean, but that's the thing, is you have to sort of buy a barrel that doesn't work with what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you won't learn to not go there next time.
I know, but it's an expensive fuck up.
Yeah.
It's...
So what do you do with that barrel?
I give it another chance, and this year I it's so funny. Like, you come in here and like, if it's like an afternoon and I've finished work and I'm like, go down the winery because I want to check the bungs and check the seals are all, and like everything's still okay this time of year, especially, and it's, it's a nice time, May, June for me are the down months. when, I don't do any vineyard work. I do bottling we do some vineyard work, but it's just tractor work.
Sure.
That's quick.
Yeah.
And, come down here and you'd be like, oh, yeah, well, fuck, I'm here. Like, Rainbow's out with Leonard. I've got an hour. Or I'll just I'll try some barrels.
Sure.
You try and make it legit. You put your labels, your glasses, in a line.
Legit.
And you're trying you're trying things. You're like, well, those are all the, Little Creek Pinot barrels and that stuff. And I just now I just realize I'm really biased. Like I've never tried the Merlot. I don't even know what the hell it tastes like after we've had a vintage. Because I'm just I like Merlot, but it's not. I'm not passionate about we make one Merlot, right? It comes from one site, and I enjoy drinking it. We've got we make a Merlot that I think like is how Merlot I wish it was made in a lot of places. It's all oldish oak, and it's on skins for not too long, but and it's just delicious red wine, and it's it's not insipid and light, or we pick it ripe when we make it, it's good, but I just don't look at it. It's like the Sauvignon Blanc barrels, you're like, oh yeah, like I think I might try the Pinot barrels first. Nice. So it's like that, and I feel like with that barrel that you were talking about, that naughty Chardonnay barrel, I filled it up again with Ashton Chardonnay, same vineyard, just to have a look.
But 1 year old, 1 year later.
And that's 1 year later, but I haven't tasted it because
really?
I'm biased. I mean, I've only got a short amount of time before I got to go to the house and cook dinner
pretend
or something, or
done the washing,
or haven't drunk 5 glasses of wine in the last half an hour, and I'm just like. And I don't look at them, so who knows? I mean, we can look at it. We should look at a Merlot barrel and that dodgy barrel and some Sauvignon Blanc. But yeah, it's a funny one. Because I think I mean, it just depends where you're at. I remember in 2013, I was and 2013, 14. I didn't make Pinot. I got some Pinot because I just was after grapes, and Anton sold me some Pinot off Jim's block, and. I just chucked it with Pinot Gris.
Right.
I did Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris. I thought that's going to work. Delicious
Got
wine.
the same name.
And it worked.
Yep.
It worked a treat. And then now there's 1,000 Pinot times 3 or Pinot and Pinot and Pinot on the market. And which for a good reason. I mean, Vin de Sofa for us is Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris still. And, and then, the Pinot bug hit. Yeah. And then after that, it's pretty hard when you've got something that, we spend... And I guess to the extent a lot of the question is still even if Pinot works up here, because I'm not convinced that besides a few sites through Adelaide, through the hills, I just think it's, if I had a plant at home now, I wouldn't put Pinot in. I'd put,
And you are going to plant here, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we'd probably put, Sangiovese in, which is another thing that I've slowly getting my head around a bit more now, and just because it kind of feels like Tuscany up here, and it's sort of warm but not too warm, and
good clones out now too.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, you guys are lucky in WA. You've got clones of everything. You've got a.
Well, it wasn't always like that. I think because of the quarantine laws, they just brought in a bunch of stuff at the start.
Yeah.
And then we're all sort of stuck with it. And Sangi was one that I think everyone planted years ago and ended up being a variety called Carnelian because there was a mix-up somewhere. The same thing happened with Alvarinho years later, and it was...
And look at that. Well, they were lucky because they planted the trendiest grape in the...
Yeah, I know. They're ahead of their time.
World at the moment.
And Merlot was always not too flash, in my opinion, with the clones there. But now there's great Merlot clones, some great clones of Sangi as well.
No, exactly. So, I mean, and I think, so with the Pinot, because we've got so many different sites, we've got, feels like now we're working with, including the fruit that we buy, we're working... How many is it? It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Pinot sites.
Wow. I've got the bug.
Yeah, and just to see the difference, it's kind of it's one of those things.
And do you treat them all differently, or?
Yeah. Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I'm up and down with Pinot. I don't think I've made one that I actually like so far. I just feel like there's something, you sort of do panic stations at vintage, and you're but I've figured out this year, I'm a lot happier this year. We've done pretty much everything is 100% whole bunch in 2019, and everything's in small fermenters. Normally we ferment in those giant 4-tonners back there, but they just make big, dark, beastie wine. So
so extractive, get really warm.
Yeah.
You have chilling on it?
Yeah, no, so we do keep them down, but they never get too hot. But it's obviously the thermal mass keeps it all going, and obviously it's nice for fermentation because it gets through real quick and it's easy to deal with. But it just hasn't worked. So because in 2018 we were a bit disorganized and there was quite a lot of fruit. We actually had to ferment in smaller things, and then looking back at the barrels, I'm like, yeah, they're all really good. Really, like, you know, they're really sort of aromatic and bright and not too extracted. And yeah, so this year we did everything in small fermenters, and gone back to using some oak, like some new oak. And I mean, every year it seems different. You know, who knows? Next year I'll probably hate all the new oak barrels and we'll just not buy anything. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, I guess because Pinot is in all the sites up here, all around the place, it's, you know, you see the difference. And same with Chardonnay, same thing, you know, like it's sort of, and that's why I guess when I'm down here, I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's tasting like. And you can see it. I mean, they are treated the same way. I mean, we pretty much with, Skerry, Little Creek, Budvin, Wisson, and Norton Summit, they're all 100% whole bunch, made the same way in the 1 ton fermenters, and they've gone into pretty much similar oak. So we'll see. It'll be interesting exercise. And I've always loved that idea, like, of making single site Pinot, Chardonnay, or anything really. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's just what we've got up through this part of Adelaide Hills. And making them the same way and just expressing it. And, you know, it's something that's not really done that much in Australia. Like, we sort of really, you know, we just make wines and they're not vineyard specific to an extent. Like Anton did it in the beginning. Mac's always done them, which I've loved, you know, like his wines over the years, to be able to sit down and be like, you can sit down with him and look at, you know, 5 Pinots and 5 Chardonnays and just go, fuck, you know, like that's just beautiful to see and explain it, you know, with the aspects in the year. And that's sort of something we just decided now that we would do. And I think I'd probably just get too bored if I just had one Pinot vineyard and making one wine, which is what happened with Scary Gully. So now I'm like, got these little ones here and there, and we're lucky. And they're all oldish clones. Like, we've got none of the fancy ones, so much. But I mean, they kind of, I guess, you know, they work well. They've been here for so long, and it's good. There's some clones, of course, I'd love to get rid of, but when you've got 2 hectares of it, it's a bit hard to be like, just chop it all and do something else. Because the bank doesn't like that. One. I know. They're like, so you're going to pick no wine, you make no wine from that vineyard, and it's going to cost you heaps to graft and train. Yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it?
And no money will come back from it for 5 years. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're thinking. Yeah. You can see why. Like, if you sit back and like look at it, you're like, yeah, I guess I can understand why they said no. Like, I'd say no too. And I should say no to myself. But, you know, as you know what it's like with winemaking, money comes in, money goes out. You just try and grab some of it on the way.
Yeah. Somewhere.
For a holiday. So do you have any plans for next? Are you just rolling with it, seeing what's happening? Or?
Yeah, I would like to build a new winery.
Cool. Here on site?
Maybe. We'll see.
Mysterious.
Yeah, we'll plant here. We've got about 4 acres we can plant here. It's steep as all hell, so whether we do it or not, we're not sure. So that's always the other option, is to maybe buy a bit of land that's a bit flatter.
Sure.
And we can build a winery and put it in a vineyard. We've got, someone coming on full time from next month, which is a big change for us.
Great.
So
that's
good luck to
amazing.
them. Yeah, sort of feel like all grown up.
Oh no,
I'll be a boss.
You'll be doing
or Rainbow's the boss. Sorry, not me. But yeah, so and I mean, I think for us, there's that side of things, and then, you know, as we sort of mentioned briefly before, like now we're farming, you know, all the blocks biodynamically, and we are going to, you know, get them all certified, and that's going to be, now that we have someone helping, and my wine's getting bottled off-site, got time to fill out paperwork and pay people more money. So
nice.
But you know, it's something that's been important to us from day one. So we've got the time and not so much the money, but we'll find it to do it, and it's worth it for me. I think it's part of not, you know, growing up, and I think in general natural wine needs to, in Australia, will have to grow up, and everyone's going to have to come on board and do that, I think, over time.
I think so, yeah. I tend to agree with that. It's so hard the hype to and fro with certification. You know, at one point it was like, oh, do we even put it on the label? And then you put it on the label. It's like, oh, should we take it off the label? I mean, every time we put the symbol on the bottle, it's 1% of turnover. So there's the financial part of that as well. But no, I think you're right. I think everything's just progressing. You know, it's started off.
I think once, you know, you get to a certain threshold, a number of people doing it, everyone's just going to follow suit. Yeah. And, you know, and that, you know, for me, that's more important than probably most other things that people argue about with natural wine, you know, whether it's filtered or whether it's, you know, got sulfur or not. Like, that's, for me, until we deal with the vineyard side of things, I think it's totally irrelevant, those sort of conversations. And that's a personal preference, but it's not something that, you know, if someone starts talking about, you know, asking me about sulfur at a tasting, like I just give them the answer, but I get, semi-annoyed because I'm like, but you could have asked me about the vineyard, like what's more important, like me farming, or do you want me just to go and buy whatever fruit and not add sulfur to? Because I can do that for you. Like, trust me, I can go get $500 ton fruit from somewhere, make some cloudy thing, put no sulfur and sell it to you if you want to pay like $20.
Yeah.
Man, I'm ready to go for that. But, it's like, it's not, it's not been the dream. And, like, I'm not saying anyone's right or anyone's wrong, but for me, the important thing is step one, and that's the farming and like being, there's a lot of assumptions with natural wine. Everyone just assumes that everything's biodynamic or whatever it is, and it's not. And it's, a lot of most producers would be just buying fruit, and that's nothing wrong with that. Like, I know it's expensive. Like, look around here, to buy a block of land is going to cost you $1 million. Like, and that's unaffordable for most people. They're starting out, and I totally get it. Why, there's nothing wrong with buying grapes, but you could pay your growers a bit more and they can get certified and make them feel happier. They'll have a better product that they can sell in the market if you go away or leave them or whatever. So it's beneficial for
I think
for everyone.
I think it's helping to improve the region, improve the farming practices, by you paying that little bit more and converting things, as you say, even if you do walk away, you've left the world a better place.
Yeah. And hopefully the guy then get someone knocking on his door and paying good money for fruit.
Yeah.
Not just going back to spraying herbicides because it's all too hard.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, nice, mate. So anything else? I think we'll go try that Pina Colada barrel.
Yeah, and some Sauvignon Blanc and Merlot. Aren't you lucky?
Save the good stuff for me.
You come all this way from Margaret to try Merlot and Sauv Blanc. But, you've got to tell me where I fucked up.
So I guess, you people can find you on Instagram if they want to buy your wine. Can they buy it from the website?
Most of the time I'm in Bali on my yacht. So.
Oh, cool. That's right. We've got to talk about that because I've got to bring all that Burgundy up for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Carry on.
That's what I do most of the time. So
I'm your Burgundy mule.
Yeah. When I get email reception, I'll get back to people. So I mean, we're pretty easy to find. We don't really have visitors to the winery because it's the winery. I guess it's always part of our house. So. It's a bit hard, and that means I have to clean up and make it look legit, and not be grumpy.
God, we just did that 12 months ago.
I can't believe you guys
open to the public. I've got to be nice to people, which and then as you said, keep the place clean. We got lawn,
but it feels it must be going. It's going pretty well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we didn't really know what to expect, but I guess we'd been going. I don't know, but selling wine since 2010, so like 9 years, and then when we opened the gates, we're like, a couple of Instagram posts, we've opened to sell the door. There's a bit of a build-up as we were, digging holes and stuff. And it's not fancy, it's just a big table in the shed.
Yeah, great.
But, it's gone great for us. It's sort of, it's awesome.
Well, people couldn't get up our driveway, so that's probably their problem.
Yeah, it's a crazy driveway.
That's right, it keeps them out. Them and everyone else. But no, I mean, people want to find us. The wines are available everywhere.
Nice.
On the website, or give me a call.
Give him a call. But we won't give your number out.
Yeah, we go pretty well. I stupidly put
Exit
it on
a hotel.
I stupidly put it on my boxes.
Oh, do you?
No, I did, until that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I was like, why the hell would I do that? I was an idiot. So, but one of those things you learn, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, thanks, mate. We'll go try some barrels, and you can get off to the footy.
Oh God. Yeah. We won't make it to the footy, let's be honest.
Yeah. All right, I'm pushing stop. How, that one? Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Gareth from Gentlefolk. You can find show notes, links, and occasionally a transcript at our website, realwinepeople.com. Don't forget to please rate and review, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks again. Bye for now.